Hi Pascal.
Hello, Ellie.
Thank you so much for joining me today and agreeing to chat with me on some really important areas. So I'm really looking forward to hearing what you've got to say about the areas of exercise and also our thoughts and how they relate to a person's ability to burn fat. But first of all, could you start by telling us a bit about what you do?
Yes, thank you for the invitation. So I've been in the health and wellness industry since about 2008. Before that, I was a chef. So when I started in fitness and nutrition, I wanted to bring my chefing experience into the home as well, so that people were looking at healthy eating as well as just doing exercise and so on. And as I went through those years, what I noticed was I would spend more time dealing with people's headspace and where they're at in their belief system around being healthy and body image and that sort of thing. So I moved into the life coaching arena. So I'm doing a lot more of that now. I do still do the fitness and nutrition specifically, but my coaching experience is accessing a little more of a holistic lifestyle. So that's where I'm at now.
Cool. And in your life coaching, I understand that you cover quite a few different areas. Is that right? Can you tell us about those?
Yeah, absolutely. So I do look at health and fitness as an area on its own. Little voice mastery, I call it. So that's talking about the self-talk, self-concept. I do a lot in relationship building as well. So whether that be at home with children or intimates, and also with business, that sort of thing. And also blueprints. So blueprints are based on what is their health blueprint, their money blueprint, their career blueprint, because that's all based on past experiences and what patterns are over top that drive their behaviour. So being in the health and fitness industry helped me to learn about those things, because I was looking at what people tell themselves, and what they tell themselves or say to me tells me what their blueprint is, and I'm looking at reframing that so it works to serve them rather than negate.
And you've got a specific term that you use to sort of cover all those areas that you've created yourself, haven't you?
So my Rainmaker?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Rainmaker, I'm looking into what's their glass ceiling. So smashing through the glass ceiling. So my company is called Rainmaker Coaching and Training, and I use that as there's a need for sunlight. I'm a sunshine girl. Sunlight is so important to growth, but I realise that also the rain is important for growth in nature, and much the same as the dealing with the darkness or the negative is just as important as being positive and so on. So I'm looking at how to reframe the negative self-concept, which is really the context at which what I tell myself is going to be how I behave. So my thoughts and my feelings create my behaviours, and that in turn is what produces the results in my life. So it sounds like a bit of a psychological science, but it's actually it's about looking at behaviours and looking at how I choose my words to create my reality. Yeah.
That's great. It's really fantastic that you cover so many different areas, and I'm sure that so many of our listeners out there are going to be lacking in one, if not many, important areas of their life. And if they are lacking in one or more areas, then it tends to have a knock-on effect, I guess, to many other things in your life, and it can seem as if nothing's going right. So I'm sure that you're helping to make a whole lot of people happier and healthier out there, so that's really great.
Thank you.
So we'll get into our questions first of all on exercise. So as a health and fitness professional, people are always asking me what is the best form of exercise for fat burning. So what's your take on this? Do you think that there are certain forms of exercise that are superior to others when it comes to fat burning?
I do think that there's some general principles around exercise. So I always recommend some intense resistance training for muscle building, just as a general rule, really, because the muscles can atrophy over time just with age. So I think, it's a really important part. But also balancing that out with some lighter, what I call feminine energy type exercise. So I look at people doing their hard, intense things as well as their lighter stuff, and cardiovascular as well. I do think, though, that there are individual should I say, like benefits. You know, there's things that benefit one individual and not another. A classic example for me is I have a client who she would come into the gym and she'd work really hard, and when she wanted to lose weight, she would really go intensely. And when we reframed that and got into the concept of, okay, let's lessen on the exercise, look at diet and nutrition, cellular nutrition as well, and easing on the intensity, all of a sudden she just let go of, the body just let go of the fat, and she became much stronger, much more confident, and also she had patterns and habits that had changed around her lifestyle. So her diet changed quite dramatically without being on a diet, and I was really specific about that point. And she'd meet me maybe once a week for intense training, and then she would just go for walks. And for her to go from, you know, years of battling the weight loss issue, just making those subtle changes to having the balance was the answer that her body needed. And that doesn't work for everybody, but I do like the idea of going, okay, the generalised principles are to, you know, do some exercise intensely, some cardiovascular stuff, as well as alter a few tweaks in the diet, but definitely looking at, well, what works for you, what makes you feel good, what's your spice, what's the variety that's going to help, and have that balance. Men as well, I do encourage that, because I get a lot of guys who are like, well, I must just go hard out.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's not necessarily the intense thing that's going to produce the fat loss. It's actually what happens after or in between the exercise sessions.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of people out there that probably think that if they exercise longer and harder and more often, that they're just going to get better results, whereas in fact the opposite can be true sometimes. And so what do you think is the key reason that your client got better results from doing just that one hard training session a week and just walking for the rest of the week?
I think it was a big part of self-care, actually being more kind to herself. So there was an inner battle going on, and her belief that she did have to work really intensely. But on a physiological level, the body is not going to release fat in a place of stress. So exercise is stressing the body, and I don't say that to mean exercise is bad, not at all. It's definitely important. But the recovery part is also just as important, if not more so, as well as the nutrition side. You know, those have to be coupled, because when the body's in a state of calm and of rest, then it's not producing the stress hormones that are fat storing. It's in a place of calm and therefore can produce the hormones that release fat. So I do encourage people to do either active recovery, which is things that are lighter, like the walking or jogging or a cycle or a swim or something like that. Stretching, yoga, Pilates, these sorts of lighter movement, still movement, but it's not stressing the body out. It's actually helping the body to do its thing and to recover. And if clients are doing the really intense gym workouts, so lots of heavy weights and so on, then I recommend the days of rest. And if they want to still exercise on those days, then it has to be something lighter to allow the body to heal.
Cool. Well, my next question is quite closely related to that, I guess, and that is, how can we figure out what the exact right amount of exercise is? So people might be aware now that if they exercise too long and too hard, that they're going to risk burning out, among other things, and that if they don't do enough, then they're probably not going to get enough of a response in the body, and they're not going to be able to burn fat either. So like, what's your recommendation in terms of how many times a week and how long we should exercise for at a time? Again,
I think it's an individual thing, but as a general rule, I would say intensely, kind of 2 to 3 times a week, and couple that with 2 to 3 times of the yoga or the jogging or whatever it is that person enjoys doing, because I think it has to be enjoyable, otherwise it's not sustainable. But within that, also movement every day is important. So I think there's a lot of focus on exercise being the thing, and I've got to go to a gym, or I've got to go and do this class, or I've got to do this thing, and I've got to schedule it into my time, and then I sit down all day and at my computer or TV in the evening and driving all the time, and I think, well, the body is designed to move. So movement, just getting up during the lunch break or doing even incidental exercise around the office is all part of keeping healthy. So when I'm looking at how many times people are going to exercise during the week. I also want to know what their lifestyle is like, because someone who leads a very active lifestyle might not need to work out as often in terms of the structured exercise sessions. But someone who has a very sedentary lifestyle, then I'm going to be looking at, well, make sure that you're breaking your day up so that you're not going to negate the exercise that's being done, say, in the morning. Otherwise, it's kind of pointless.
Yeah, I like what you said about the incidental exercise as well, because that's something that everybody can fit into their lifestyle in some way or another. And so, yeah, I guess it's just important for people to understand that they don't have to schedule an hour session at the gym, do they? I mean, they could get a great workout in 20 minutes, or if they only have 5 minutes, then they could do something, run up and down the stairs or something like that, and they're going to benefit from that.
And even like a skipping rope, a skipping rope for 2 minutes can get a really great workout in, and there's so many muscles activated during that time, and it's intense, if you can go really fast and improve for 2 minutes. No one would believe that 2 minutes would actually help them burn fat, but if it did, 2 minute sessions twice a day and got a walk in, you'd be surprised what you could do.
Yeah, my clients are always really surprised how tough skipping is, because I think they remember back to when they were kids and it was quite easy and they could skip around all day. But yeah, I mean, a sort of like 1 minute skip is going to raise the heart rate up quite a lot for the majority of people.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so would you agree, though, coupled with that consistency is probably the key? I mean, we can say, we can exercise 3 times a week or 5 times a week, and but if we're going to do that just 1 week and then we're going to have the next week off, then that's not really going to get us our results, is it?
Absolutely. I have a client who he started in his 60s. So he came to me in his 60s and he said, all I want is to be able to touch my toes. So his thing was about flexibility. And over a year period, we were able to get him to the point where he could touch his toes. But what happened was he would come religiously every week for 2 sessions a week, and we'd be working on strength, we'd be working on lengthening. It wasn't always intense, and he just kept that up. And then after 2-3 years, he's doing half marathons he's done already 3, and it's only a few months into the year. So, he says to me, I feel better now than I did 30 years ago. And that to me is a huge victory for the industry, but also for him as a person. And it's because he just kept coming in. On the flip side, I've had other clients who come in, and at the beginning of the year, it's always that New Year resolution, they'll come in and maybe last for 3 months. And then it's a repeat cycle of their compounded effect is the negative side, because it's whatever the compound effect is always working. And for those ones, it's I get a short burst, but I don't keep it going. That's why I work really a lot on the sustainability of things as well. And if this doesn't fit in with your lifestyle and be something that can be sustained for the rest of your life, then you're in the wrong place. We need to actually look at how we can make this fit in so that it is consistent.
Yeah, it just reminds me of a quote from the great Aristotle when he says, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is not an act, but a habit."
Absolutely.
So it's really great to hear about the success of your clients who have been really consistent. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, if our goal is to burn fat, then we need to make choices every day that are going to support that.
Absolutely, yeah.
So moving on, I've still got another question about exercise. I was wondering, what do you think is the best time of day to exercise if your objective is to burn fat?
I find that if people start their day correctly, then they're onto a good thing. So I normally recommend people do their most intense exercise in the morning, because it builds energy after having slept and also sets them up to choose better foods as well during that day. And then to end, if they're able to end the day with something less intense. Also because of the chemistry that's going on inside, and the energy that's built up after a resistance session is quite high. And I find that that can affect sleep patterns, and sleep, of course, being restorative, it's important that it's a good sleep. So I tend to invite people to do yoga and their other less intense exercises in the evening.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying about the connection with a day of healthy eating after you've done a morning exercise session. In terms of fat burning, I know that there's some people, they say they do their cardio in the morning because it's best for fat burning, and their weights in the evening. So what's your take on that?
I'm not sure if there's a scientific study, certainly I've not seen one that says either way, do your cardio in the morning or your resistance in the evening. I just find that people, in my experience, have done better when they've done their weight sessions early because of the afterburn. They're still burning their fat at rest. They're not burning it during the session, they're burning it at rest, so during the day. When it comes to the cardio, I know that there's thousands of studies that back the fact that cardiovascular long slow running, for example, doesn't actually burn fat. It's good for endurance of the heart and all of that good stuff, but it's not really the fat burning that people are looking for. Yeah.
Cool.
So I like to couple them both, have the resistance and then and do the other later.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, I guess we need to do whatever we can to get our exercise in, and if it's that the evening is the only time that you've got for any exercise session because you're up so early already in the morning, then I guess as long as you do some form of exercise, and if it is going to be a harder form in the evening, that you allow that couple of hours wind down time before you actually go to bed.
Yeah.
Because essentially it's that combination of all those things, like getting enough sleep and eating well and exercising, that are going to get us our results.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, so let's just finish up with one last question on exercise. Do you think that you can get results just from focusing on exercise, or do you really need to focus on nutrition as well?
There's a saying that goes, you can't out-train a bad diet, and I firmly believe that. I've done a lot of research on the nutritional aspects of fat loss and just general well-being, actually. And I've found that exercise isn't enough. It's important. We're supposed to move. We're built that way, yes. It's what we do every day that counts, though. And certainly going to the gym, doing a really great session, and then going and eating high-fat foods, high-sugar foods, or stimulants. I mean, there's a lot of clients that I get come in who they'll start their day with stimulants like coffee and so on, and they'll end their day with alcohol. And in between, there's high sugar, high fat, or no foods or non-foods. And I'm like, well, exercise isn't going to get you there because it's just stress compounded on top of stress in terms of chemicals in the body. So I really look to educate on the nutrition front, both on a cellular level and a macro level. So obviously what is on their plate, and looking at balance there, and re-educating on whole foods, and not so much following diets or, I know there's so many different diets now and different regimes, but I just prefer people to really look at their food and go, well, am I eating food? Is this food, or is it just non-foods that are masked as foods? There's a lot of packaged stuff and preservatives and so on. I'm like, well, it's not really going to assist the body. But nutrition, I think, is probably more important than exercise. It's important to move every day, absolutely, but nutrition is a huge part. In terms of the fat burning. Absolutely.
Yeah, in my fat burning book, I definitely delve the most into nutrition, and the thing is that if we're not eating well, then that exercise session is just going to be too much of a stress for our body, and it'll end up shutting down, and we'll get sick, and then we won't be able to exercise at all anyway.
Exactly, and it negates the whole purpose of why they're in the gym in the first place, wanting to lose fat. Then, have to serve the body by nourishing in the right way as well. Yeah.
Great. Thank you for all your wisdom on exercise, Pascale. So we're going to move into a totally different area now, which is the area of thoughts. So I've just got a couple of questions to you, for you about thoughts. And my first one is basically just, how does the way that we think affect our body's ability to burn fat?
Like I said, the reason I moved into coaching was because I'll call it the little voice audio tape that was playing for a lot of my clients was that I'm not strong enough, I'm not skinny enough, I'm too fat, I'm too this, I've grown up this way, or my habit is to eat this way because of my family upbringing, or I'm genetically predisposed to diabetes, or oh no, I'm big boned, I'm this. There's all these things going on in the head, and when we strip all that back and go, well, what does it mean about how you see yourself? A lot of my clients actually didn't believe that they would ever be fit and healthy. It's a I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to do this, and really what they were telling themselves on the inside was, but that will never happen. Mm-hmm. I won't be that because of whatever the self-limiting belief is. So I really work on reframing those pathways, because it's like on outwardly doing something that is serving my body and nourishing, I'm eating well, but inside self-sabotaging. So really the thought is, I see it as the seed. The thought is the seed, and that will grow into whatever tree. Whatever fruit is on that tree shows me what the seed is. Mm-hmm. So I've tried this, I've tried that, and that never worked, and this and that, and I must be or I'm wrong, or I'm not enough. For women I've found it's definitely I'm not good enough, or I'm not something enough. And for men it's I'm wrong, I'm weak or inferior if such and such. So the thought really being the seed is, if you feed that and nourish that seed, it's going to grow into whatever tree that seed is based on. So if it's a negative thought, then it's a corrupt tree, really. And if it's a positive one based on self-image, especially the inner world of, I encourage people to look in the mirror, look in their own eyes, and look at their own body in the mirror and realise that they are a beautiful being. I have a beautiful body, I love myself, I forgive myself, I support myself, I move freely, these positive affirmations and things, which I think take, probably about a good 6 to 8 weeks to sink in. A lot of the time I get people to say these things, they don't believe it at first. Mm-hmm. But then once they get going and they realise, actually, I do support myself, I am an amazing being, I can do things, then all of a sudden their world opens up. Yeah.
That's great. You've given me a really comprehensive answer there, and sort of gone into what I was going to ask you next about negative thought patterns, and you've sort of explained some of the things that people say that aren't supporting actually what they want to achieve. But what I was wondering was, my thought is that most people who have been successful in anything in life have been so as a result of a well-trained mind. Mm-hmm. But as a fitness trainer, I've always had trouble trying to convince my clients of the importance of training their mind. So I was wondering, do you have any particular technique or approach that you use to help them to really understand this is incredibly important and it will help me progress and reach my goal?
Yeah, I have I do always share my own story to help illustrate to them. So going from my own place of not being enough to understanding what it means to be enough and to sit in that. There's a couple of techniques I use. First, identifying their language. Like I said before, the language tells me what their blueprint is. So if their blueprint is, I tried to go to the gym, I think, well, try. What does that mean? You physically tried. You were walking to the gym and somehow took a detour, or what does that mean? You try is, I didn't go. But it's like softening the blow of not going, and so I get people to really own and be responsible for their actions. So try is out, should is out, need, I need to go, but because it places this pressure of having to do it, of being obligated. And the obligation then drives the negative force of, well, if I don't go, then I must be wrong or bad or not good enough, or the guilt trip. Well, the guilt trip then in itself is creating a chemical reaction inside that is negative. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to remove all of that negativity, and I just said try again, I just heard myself. But that is definitely the attempt with people, is to illustrate to them how destructive those thought patterns can be. Mm-hmm. Another thing is I often get people to track their progress. Mm-hmm. So tracking is a really great wake-up call. And along with tracking, like food journals are a great way to go. I also get people to write their successes down. Mm-hmm. And a success could be something as simple as I went for a walk, or I told myself I was kind today, or I love myself, or I said my affirmations, whatever it was. Simple things. And it could be great big wins, like I lost so many kilos of fat, or I, fit this dress or that shirt, because then it brings in a sense of, actually I am a successful person, and what I do, my behaviour is paying off. So it brings in awareness. When people are more consciously aware of what's happening in their lives based upon the choices they're making, all of a sudden it seems easier. Mm-hmm. And with that ease comes in a greater level of confidence in moving forward. Mm-hmm. I also get people to write down so successes and gratitudes. Yeah. Being grateful is a huge, huge, huge part of the success and just of the human condition, being present and happy in the state that I'm in, rather than always being in future or in past, is bringing me to the now. What am I grateful for now? Mm-hmm. I'm grateful I have a body that still carries me around no matter how much I beat it up.
Yeah.
And it's still surviving, and it's, I'm still here. Mm-hmm. Things like that. Gratitude brings in a whole world of abundance. Mm-hmm. and with that there's a lot of power in that.
Yeah, and I mean that technique of journaling and of writing those things down, I mean, I know when I think of my clients who have been most successful, it's always the ones that have written in food diaries. Mm-hmm. And the ones that have added in more detail, about how they're feeling after meals and things like that, they've been even more successful. So I guess that sort of works the same way with writing down things that you're grateful for and those
absolutely
things. Yeah. And I mean, those should and try type statements that you talk about, they're things that we can all make a change on starting today, and they're things my partner and I always ask each other to pull ourselves up on any language that we're using that's not helpful to the outcomes that we're trying to achieve. And it just reminds me of another quote from the great Yoda, who says, "Do or not, there is no try."
Yeah, absolutely. And when people do ask me, so what do I use instead of try or should or need to? I'm like, well, how about just I do it, or I do not. I'm choosing to do, I'm choosing to not. Choose is a great mm-hmm. word. It's a power word. Yeah. And choosing.
We all have choices.
Exactly, and that brings high energy and a sense of power. Whereas those other negative words bring disempowerment and no choice and low energy, and that's kind of below the line thinking. Yeah.
That's really great. Well, thank you so much, Pascale. You've shared some really great tips and wisdom with us today, and I'm sure that our listeners will be able to go away and incorporate them into their daily lives. And before we finish, can you just tell us about where we can find out more about what you do? Absolutely.
So actually what I'd like to invite any of the listeners to do is to go onto my website, which is pascalebatrick.com. And they can put their email in the box on the homepage, and I'll send them a free discovery session voucher with me, which is really just we'll have a consultation together, and there's nothing attached to that other than then getting the value out of where they're at with their little voice. Mm-hmm. Because if they're wanting to advance in their fat burning, then in other areas, then I'm happy to offer them that individualised service. And just basically apply the tips that they've heard today. I look forward to hearing any feedback from anyone who's applied such things. So
that's great. Well, that's a really generous offer. And so is that something that they need to do face to face, or can you do that via Skype? Or?
I can do by phone and Skype as well. So they don't necessarily have to be here in Christchurch. Mm-hmm. And certainly if they are here in Christchurch, I'm happy to meet them as well.
Great, so that's pascalebatrick.com.
Correct.
Cool. I did take a look at your website, and there's heaps of really inspirational stuff on there. I saw that you do seminars, workshops, you've got books on there, and even international retreats, I believe, which is I mean, they look amazing. So yeah,
I'm looking forward to getting more Christchurch people out there as well, given what's happened here. So yeah,
great.
It's exciting.
Well, thanks very much, Pascale, and I'll catch you next time.
Thank you very much.